This week on Transformation Decoded, learn why a Hindu festival, an architect, and a podcast really got us thinking. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our episode of Transformation Decoded. And we're pretty excited today to talk about a pretty cool topic around permanent versus impermanence. And there's a little bit of a background to this that has to do with a podcast. I'm the podcast junkie of the crew. Jackie's our reading and library junkie. I'm kind of a podcast junkie, and I think Isabel's turning into reading and podcast junkie.
I'm a blend.
I'm actually a podcast junkie too.
I know.
I think we're just all junkie.
We're just junkies, right?
That's another episode.
So I was listening to this podcast. It's a TedRadio Hour, which is one of my favorite, and I'll put it is about the transforming our cities, and we'll put the links of everything we're talking about in the notes. It interviewed this architect who started to talk about when he visited a Hindu festival that takes place every 12 years, and it's the largest gathering, they say, in the world. And really 100 million people converge into this city, and he's an urban planner, an architect, and a professor at Harvard. He was fascinated by the fact that the city only exists for this festival. So 6 to 8 weeks prior to the festival, they build the city that has no foundation, but has every infrastructure of a mega city that's up for 55 days. And then 1 week later, it's gone with very little footprint. And he mentions that they basically build this out of fabric with a total of like 5 building materials total, but almost everything being built out of fabric. And as he was thinking about that from an urban planning perspective, and I'm going to read this, this little note that he said, is he said, it really caused me to reflect. And he said, and the question I think we have to ask ourselves is, how often do we build permanent solutions for impermanent problems? And I'll tell you what, I know it was about urban planning, but that hit me straight, kind of in the gut, going, wow, I have to really think about that. So I was so excited. I jotted it down. And on our next mastermind, I said, you guys, I have to tell you this quote. And Isabel, I told you first, and kind of you went, wow, too. So, share with kind of how that hit you and kind of what that question means to you.
Absolutely. Isabel Banerjee here, the Encore Catalyst. And, I think that's one of my big problems in life. I expend so much energy trying to build these long-range, strategic thinking, permanent solutions, and then life happens. And it is no longer required. It's not necessary. And I've just invested so much time and energy, trying to build the rocket to go to the moon. So it gave me a lot to pause and think about. When is thinking just for now or just far enough ahead of what I need much more expedient than trying to figure every detail out and plan for infinity.
Yeah. It's infinity. Yeah, we do try to make things really, really permanent, don't we?
Yeah.
Jackie, how about you? I mean, and I think you weren't on the initial call, so Isabel and I had kind of ramped up on this idea of like, let's do this as a Transformation Decoded, and kind of how did it hit you when you heard us kind of talking about it?
Well, it was interesting. I had to really think it through, like how that fit into my world and my thought process and things that I've done and things that I've observed and things that I'm thinking about. And it was interesting because the more time that I spent thinking about it, the more I really honed in on just the overall scope of it and what it means. Like you say, Lee, yeah, it's urban planning, but it spawns itself off in so many different directions. And I know the word impermanence is a word that I've been very tuned in on this past year in 2020, very tuned in on the word impermanence, what it means, how we fit into the world, how impermanent so many things are, no
Right.
matter how we try to shoehorn them and fit them into different things. And I was out walking the other day and walking through my favorite neighborhood and golf course area. And I was looking around, and the boulders, if you're familiar with the Scottsdale area, the boulders is right there. And I was looking up at those and I was thinking, those have been here years and years and years before I landed on this earth. And the interesting thing is, they will be here years and years and years after I'm gone from this earth. I'm walking, I'm looking at cacti, I'm looking at the boulders, and I'm thinking, what a small little footprint in a way we leave on the earth too, you know,
Right.
we individually, and to see that and think of that and wonder how many eyeballs have walked by that and admired it and its beauty, and how many people think of that stuff. And so I think that's a common thing that we do. And then the second piece that it really brought up for me was consumerism, in terms of you know, permanent solutions and the way we consume things. So it went down a lot of different paths for me personally.
Yeah, Isabel, you were going to say something?
Well, I took because I was very intrigued by this topic, and you know, that's for those who don't know us well enough yet. We meet every Monday morning. We have a mastermind, which we've been doing now for about two plus years, and the darndest topics come up, which really spur creative thinking and discussion, and you know, this whole opportunity. When we were saying earlier that we're junkies, the three of us are learning junkies, and so having this chance to go, what really does that mean? And so intrigued, and in preparation for our conversation today, I was looking for that topic, and I stumbled on the TED Talk, not the podcast, and I watched it, and I really marveled at it, because I mean, the topic, and he explains that whole festival and how from after the monsoon season on the river bed, the River Delta, the Ganges River, is where they build out that whole city. And so how quickly it goes up and how quickly it comes down. And then they've just restored the environment to the way it was before they arrived, and how that pattern, that cycle repeats every 12 years. And I loved that idea that that solutions should also not do harm. They shouldn't leave an imprint that is destructive or disadvantaging somebody else. And so there's a lot of different legs around this whole topic of impermanence, right?
Yeah, and I think, one of the time about the do no harm, I think one of the reasons that hit me so big was just like, oh wow, like I've spent a lot of my life trying to build permanent solutions, whether it was my career or my family or relationships and all these things
Yeah.
where you say, there's just, and I think that word that's big for me this year, this expectation, like we create what's permanent, right?
Yeah.
And so Isabel, kind of going off what you were saying with the harm, I mean, what about this idea of that we choose the permanent over what's healthy for us? Or, kind of, do we stick with things longer, sometimes longer than we should, for the permanence versus the change?
Well, I completely went off on another tangent when you said that, because I thought about parenting. And we have our children and we're raising them, and we want them to stay the same. We don't want them to change. We don't want them to grow too fast and leave us. And so there's that whole infrastructure that we create as a family and a parent model that we I don't think that any of us really want to face up to the impermanence of that emotionally, but we have to right? We have to let the baby birds leave the nest, and we have
Yeah.
to prepare for that our life will be different afterwards, and that applies in so many other relationships in our lives as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Ch-
gives, that quote, reason, season, lifetime
Yeah,
comes to mind. I mean, people come through your life for a reason, for a season, for a lifetime. Things come through your life, cities that you live in, jobs that you have. I mean, there's so many things. Life is fluid. If we've learned anything in this last year, not that we haven't known it, but it is. Life is fluid. Relationships are fluid.
right.
Health is fluid. I mean, it just goes on and on. So,
Yeah. And weaving back to what your comment on consumerism, Jackie, I'm thinking about that too, is that whole consumerism mentality today where we are buying all this stuff and like planning like we're going to live for 300 years in this house and have everything matching in art and stuff, and it's stuff. And Lee, you were talking about this, right? How
yeah.
you've decided there's just way too much stuff and you don't need permanently to have that much. And so this goes way deeper than I first thought about in how permanence, what did he say? Building permanent solutions for
For impermanent
impermanent problems.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And he talks about, well, Olympic venues.
oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
yes,
that was on
really,
my list. Yes.
yeah.
totally. And the
And then he,
shopping malls.
the shopping malls. And I thought it was really interesting because, and again, this is about urban, but it's all just stuff because it's the same. He said, think about the resources that go into building that and the energy. He talks a lot about resources and energy.
Yep.
He said, and then you've built this. And so I think sometimes, I know for me, if I get stuck in that, it's the whole get out your MBA sunk cost, right? You're like, I've already done this. I mean, companies fall prey to this all the time. Well, we've already invested this much. We
Just
can't
keep going.
stop. We got
Right.
to keep going. We got to keep going. And that's that, and I think that's that danger. For me, what hit me with that was that permanence mindset was, yeah, man, it's easy. Once I put so much time and energy into something, it's hard to let it go, regardless of what it is.
Are you talking about my last marriage?
I was thinking about my business, to be honest,
Well, yeah.
like,
Hmm.
so it's like, wow, it was hard. It was hard to let that go, when I thought about all that I had put into it. When I separated and stood, and it was one of the easiest decisions I made when I got out of that mindset. But
Right.
in that mindset of like, look at how much I've done, like, how can I stop? It was hard. It's like, and I had the big audacious goals, and hey, that was what I was going to build. That was my permanent idea, and it felt like, am I quitting? Why not
Mm,
Mm.
going after that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a word, quitting. Yeah. I think that one of the keys with that is just allowing ourselves, that question, the Marie Kondo question, with the magic art of tidying up or whatever it is, does it bring me joy? I think that's a question that it's important to ask continually in all different areas. And of course it's important not to be in the heat of the moment. No, it doesn't. So I'm trashing it. Obviously we have to keep our emotions in check when we do something like that. But
Again, you're talking about my last marriage, right?
Right.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, everybody. Really.
no, but it's fun. But one of the things that I've been doing lately, which is nothing new, but it's kind of like, all right, if something like tweaks me, it's like, will this matter in 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years?
Yeah.
Maybe. Sometimes yes, sometimes it is yes, sometimes you don't know how long it will, but sometimes
Mm.
you can just take that and go, okay, no, it really won't. I won't even
Right.
think of it again. Then it's, not driving some permanent solution into something that's impermanent. And yeah, so it fits in so many ways.
And Jackie, you talk a lot about this, and even in our last gratitude thing, about the choice of life, like the choice of finding joy. And it's a lot of times the choice of if we're going to make those things permanent or not, right? I mean, that's kind of like, is that what I'm going to get stuck on?
Yeah,
Is that the, foundation I'm going to build?
right.
And I
Or
don't
the
know.
hill
And
I'm
so I
going to
think,
die on, as they say in the military.
Right,
right.
right, right. Mm.
Yeah, because it really is. It's just, but I think it's easy to dig in our heels on those things sometimes, and I, like I said, I think stick with things that just don't serve us any longer.
Right.
But
I'd like to also that this maybe provides a different framework to think about when a decision is hard or you're afraid, you're just not sure if you should do it or what the right choice is, because you can't see around all the corners, that if you can just put it in that context of, I only need to build a solution for the time, the temporary space, the impermanent place I am in now, and then I can tweak and adjust and refine later. I like having that framework to think about when fear strikes.
yeah, that's it. Jackie, how about you? How do you kind of, deal with that or move between the permanent and impermanent?
Well, I'd love to tell you that I'm doing a brilliant job at it, and I'm not. I think about it in my business, how many times I've gotten a wild idea and gone down a total rabbit hole and invested lots of time and energy into developing something that really was really unnecessary. And I don't know if I do that sometimes because I'm kind of a visionary and I get an idea and I love building things. I really do. I love the creative process of putting structure and that type stuff together. Um, but I like even better the process of when it really, is fruitful and all of that. So it's an interesting question, and to weigh out in so many aspects of that. And just, looking around in my life, I mean, it's kind of funny, Isabel, you brought up children and, now grandchildren. And it was funny. My granddaughter was just here a little over, or right about a month ago. And then she was here at Thanksgiving as well. And it was kind of funny because I'm not a big stuff person in terms of that, but I ran to the store and thought I need to get a few little toys, like nothing major. And I didn't get anything major, but it was so funny because honestly, at 8 months, it was so unnecessary. It was so unnecessary. Now, one of them was this little snuggly thing, and she kind of took to that. And then when she left this last time, it was sitting there, and then I got all emotional, of course, over this thing. But same thing with kids. I mean, I, you know, I, when we first have our first child, especially, we tend to want the latest and greatest and every gadget and everything else. And as they get older and you get older and you look back and you realize, man, a set of plastic measuring cups and wooden spoons, and they go to town. Water play. I mean, just so many things like that. So I look at that side of it too, speaking of consumerism with babies and all of that kind of stuff. And I think, man, we really go overboard there. So I'm trying not to do that myself.
Yeah, well, and I think what you're kind of walking through that made me think too of kind of this term self-fulfilling prophecy. Because I had, as you may or may not know, I have a new rescue dog, and we've been working on creating, the pack structure and how everything's going to work. And we had a little bit of an incident with our larger rescue dog, with our little dog, a little nip, and going through that. And I remember, and we got a behaviorist in right away to kind of work with us. And I was saying, hey, I'm really trying to figure out if I need to be worried about this. And he said, I don't want you to be worried based on what you've told me. I think we're dealing with something really isolated. And he said, and by the way, if you sit here and obsess about this, it will happen. He said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're going to act in the way that you believe. And
Right.
you're going to insert behavior into your dogs that is not there because you're going to be looking for it and you're going to see it even if it's not there. And that was a really, I thought, whoa, that's good, good lesson. But it's kind of this similar, this idea that when we look for those things, or we have to, it's like we can almost create this reality to reinforce kind of, we don't want the kids to grow up, or we don't want this to happen, or the business needs to look this way, or do these things aren't necessary. But it's
When you think about it, this is the ideal transformation decoded topic, because transformation is allowing that, accepting that nothing is permanent, it's impermanent, and embracing that, and you know building it up and taking it down and changing it out, right? That's the recipe for successful transformation decoded and the world's largest Hindu festivals.
Yeah,
yeah.
all the planning in the world, there's so many things you can't control. And a classic example, I woke up on I guess it was Sunday morning after my son and my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter had gone home, and we just found out they're moving to Florida right after the first of the year. He got his orders, and he's in the Marine Corps, if you haven't caught that in any past things. But it was so interesting because I sat there and thought, I've spent my whole life with my kids forging a really solid relationship, and and doing my best to create an environment where they would still like me even when they got older and want to spend time with me. And man, in a little over a month, both of my children are going to live on the eastern side of the country. And I don't know when or if either one are coming back to the West. And it's kind of funny because I just sat there thinking, that's life and that's the way it goes. And
Yep.
nobody really warns you for that. They kind of do, but that's just part of it. You work hard to give them independence, to create this strong structure for them, to let them know they have choices, they can do anything. And then by God, they go and do it and it sucks. Not exactly, but it's just,
We
it's
were
kind of
getting,
fun. All
we were
things.
pretty entrenched in the status quo, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And how you think things are going to be and how you want things to be and plan for them. And there is none of that. That's why living in the moment, being present, impermanence, all these words, expectations. I mean, so many of those things you have to think about all the time because they're true.
I
They're
feel
just,
like singing like Doris Day right now, Que sera, sera. Except I don't have the voice.
yeah,
Cool
No, it
topic.
is.
Cool
It's
topic.
it,
Yeah, and Isabel, I mean, I think you summed it up, that it is really about transformation. And
Mhm.
Jackie, you always say our choice to either kind of resist the change,
life is 50-50.
or to
Yep.
to go with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love this topic. Like I said, that really, it just hit me as like, wow, that was such a cool way to think of it, and have that visual of this city to house 100 million people, and to have it be able to go up and go down with no foundation, and the thing that I like, he also said about it, is he said, and I thought this was really powerful, but he talked about how do we limit our imagination by our addiction to permanency.
Ooh, that gave me
Those aren't his.
goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I took away from it. So I thought, wow, it kind of ends up limiting us, because when you want to see the world this way, we figure out how to see it. And I guess that's the law of attraction and all that fun stuff. But
Yeah,
this is
I
it.
don't
This
know,
is
but
life, right?
it
right.
is.
You're truly right. If we do believe that we've got it all figured out, and that this is permanent, then we really have shut off our creativity and our ability to do something even greater or more significant. So, yeah. Okay.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
I'll let you guys, any final thoughts before we close this one out, Jackie, from you?
I nothing really too much more than what I shared, other than just, continuing to heighten my awareness of what matters, and to really focus on leaving the right footprint, the non-harmful footprint, and that's in every aspect, in a relationship, in Mother Earth, so many ways that we live our lives. Just really working to be focused on that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Isabel, how about you?
My thoughts are going to staying in that present moment and being open to the probability and actually looking forward to the change and the transformation, and not tying myself down and limiting myself by figuring like I've got to have all these permanent anchors around things. So let it go. Let it be free.
That's great. Well,
I'm going to get my journal out. I feel the need to journal.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking like, wow.
I can't believe you made it through this episode without getting the journal
I
out.
got my journal here thanks to Jackie. So,
Good.
Well, again, another amazing topic. As we always say, we could go on for hours and hours. I really encourage you to be learning junkies with us and click on the links to the TED Talk and everything, because it's pretty amazing stuff. And so I know that we also would love to have you give us your comments. If there's things that you think we would love to hear or see or watch in relation to this topic, please put it in the comments. Please subscribe to our channel and check us out on Facebook under Transformation Decoded, where we share more with our community. And
ring the bell.
That's right. Ring the bell so you know when we put up new content. And until we see you again, please stay happy and healthy. We'll see you later.
Bye.